Oh, front end system design. What did I heard right? Like system design for front end. Really? Does it really exist? Because whenever we Google on the like related to the system design, it's always bombarded with backend like system design, right? Then what is this all about? Let's talk about that. Okay. So before I jump into the technical stuff, I'm Chirag Goyal. I work currently at Microsoft. Previously, I was working with the Flipkart. I am a YouTuber, mentor, and a teacher. And unluckily or luckily, I have a very weird and the funny username that is Engineer Chirag. But yeah, but it is consistent and available. So as it is a system design, so just wanted to highlight. Okay, with this, let's talk about the agenda. So we will be talking about what people think about the UI and what people expect from a UI developer. Our understanding in terms of the front end system design, what are the building blocks for the front end system design, what we do, what we don't do. Basically, we will be covering all of them in detail, and let's get it started. Before that, just wanted to highlight a couple of things. I won't take much time. I know people are here on Saturday compromising their fun and all those things in order to invest in their learning. So yeah, respecting your time, get started. Okay, let's try to make it very interactive. Keep on pinging something on the chat so that it become more interactive for each other. Yeah. What are the biggest perception? What people think about the UI? Anyone? Okay. UI is something most of the people think you have a machine where you just input your HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and you will get a very good web app and web applications out of the box. This is a perception most of the people still do have. Okay. But what most of the people expect from a UI developer, like as a UI developer, what is the expectation, especially from the business and from the, you can say, product? What are those expectation is like app should open in a blink of eye, right? Like जैसे ही क्लिक करो वैसे ही ऐप खुल जाना चाहिए, राइट? सेकेंड एक्सपेक्टेशन, मुझे फ्लिपकार्ट जैसा एक्सपीरियंस चाहिए, द कूल स्मूथ द ट्रांजिशन लुक एंड फील, आई वांट एवरीथिंग लाइक फ्लिपकार्ट, राइट? थर्ड, like if Facebook is providing something, why can't we do that, right? So like जब Facebook कर सकता है तो हम क्यों नहीं कर सकते? छोटा ही तो चेंज है, अरे डिप्लॉय कर दो, डोंट वरी, आज हो जाएगा ना. इट्स लाइक इट विल टेक few hours or few minutes in order to get the change done and deploy it, right? Then UI पे सिक्योरिटी होती कहाँ है? Like why are you worrying about the securities altogether? Then like people want a consistent and available होना चाहिए उनका app, but they still believe front end में scaling होती कहाँ है? Why are you worried about that, right? Okay, with this, let's talk about what we actually do being a UI developer, right? We wanted to build an experience, right? But we end up building the features. We want to have a balance between the business and the tech, but we end up having the unbalanced work life in order to balance both of them, right? Then we wanted to develop the feature in order to grow the business, but end of the day we are actually building those features because we are asked to, not willingly, right? Most of the time these things are happening. Okay, with this, let's actually dive into the understanding of the front end system design, right? So what does a front end system design like basically understand, like most of the people? Any guesses? Any guesses, guys? Keep on guessing, keep on adding something on the chat, make it very interactive. I'm going to bombard with a lot of myth that people are having. Most of the people think, like I have taken approximate more than 1,000 interviews across, you can say, Microsoft, Flipkart, for different companies, for big fan companies as well. So most of the people, when you ask like this in the design architecture round, or you can say in the system design front end system round, people understand like folder architecture is equal to your architecture design. Anyone who still feel like your folder structure is equivalent to architecture design, or someone who have given in the interview talked about, someone asked about, can you have tell about the architecture, then people start talking about the folder structure that they have in React or different, you can say, framework, and explaining how they have used the services and sort of thing. That is not the system design we have, right? People are having myth design system is equal to your system design. I feel like it's no, both are way different. It seems like just placing two words like a front or the backward doesn't mean anything. It changed the drastic word altogether when we say design system and when we talk about system design. So these are two different things altogether. People who have faced these problem, or people who have gone through this, or people who have basically tried typing something on the Google and getting altogether different result, so that may be a confusion. Okay, the third thing is, when we talk about micro front end, most of the people are like, I have a reusable component, I have built a library altogether, I have my own design system which can be plugged in any pages, any piece of the application. So I have a micro front end for my application. No, that's a myth, right? So it's not a micro front end. So micro front end have bigger use cases. If you are building something which is reusable and it can be fitted at multiple places, it's not a micro front end. Okay, with this, let's try to understand how an app is developed, right? So when we talk about any app development, so if I have to see myself, like starting off my career, when someone talk about me, you have to develop an app, what I used to see, I will get a Figma, I will get an API, and finally I will write a code, integrate it, get it done, my job is done. This is how I used to think how to develop an app. And this is how I still feel like most of the people who just start their career or in the early stage of the career, or people who are micromanaged sometimes, the people are actually doing most of the time this thing, right? But what is the actual life cycle of an app development? Okay, the first thing is the requirement. When we say requirement, for what purpose you are going to develop anything, either it is a feature or you're talking about creating altogether a new product. Why are you even building that, right? That requirement, the business need, right? The impact, everything's come into the picture, right? Now it has two angles. One is the product business side of thing, which we call it as functional requirement. Other side is non-functional requirement, which is the expectation. I want my app to be very fast. I want my app to be supported in an offline mode. I want my app to be available, like can be used on the mobile, and it can be used on the desktop, and it can be used on the different tab sort of thing, right? These are the non-functional requirement that people have, right? But you should be very clear what sort of users basically for you are going to build your application, right? Which is very very important. Second thing is having a MVP or scoping it out. When I say scoping it out, you might have gone through the discussions with the product, with the EMs, with multiple folks. They will come up with so many requirements, bombard with so many things, right? If you're not scoping it out, it's not going to help you. Reason, you can't build a Facebook in a day one. You can't have a like marketplace like Flipkart or the Miso in a day one, right? You can't have. You have to accept that. For that, you have to prioritize so that you can have an MVP, you can have your business, and obviously outstanding thing, what are the core features, the core stuff that your platform is going to provide, right? Third thing is, once you are sure what you wanted to build, think about the tech which is going to support the use cases that you have. Getting into everything, starting from what are the libraries, frameworks you are going to use, starting from getting into the state management, getting into the best patterns that you are going to use, everything that you can think about the tech comes into the picture over here. Are you going to have a monorepo? Are you where you are going to deploy, right? What will be the backend side of thing? How, like what kind of protocol you are going to? Everything which comes into the picture, try to dig deeper inside that. Fourth thing, problem breakdown. When we say problem breakdown, so it's like, you have a bigger picture, very clear what you are going to use. Now it's time to break down your problem at the application layer. What sort of routing you are going to use, what design system you are going to use, how what piece of your application will be reusable, you are going to import as a component, what sort of theming you are going to have, are you going to use something out of box in terms of you can say localization stuff. Everything's come into this. Try to break down your problem statement. The fifth part is the implementation. Then actually your implementation come where you talk about getting the Figma, getting the API, getting the contract done, finally getting the implementation done, and using the best practices on the UI in order to roll out your application, right? This is how basically this is a front end, you can say, app development life cycle happen. This is nothing special. We know this used to happen. This is happening somewhere. Either you are part of it or you are not a part of it. This is nothing. This is actually a system design expectation. Whenever you go into any of the interviews, whenever you are having a discussion, people who are like starting at the career or people at the senior level, they can differentiate between the expectation, the requirement that you used to get, or the discussion you are basically chipped in, right? So this is the system design where if you are asked something to build as an HLD level, which is high level diagram, right? It's the candidate or you can interviewer is basically asking for the what are the requirement you can think of. Are you able to even scope, prioritize the thing in terms of the business need and how much time investment it is going to take, right? Are you able to decide the tech in order to have the features and the functionality and the vision for the future, right? All of them come into the HLD. When it comes to the LLD, it's more about the person is actually looking you to build some piece of the application, along with that maintaining some code standard, like having a proper state management, thinking about the data modeling, all those things. The point number 4 and 5 comes into the LLD. So most of the people call it machine coding round. So you might have gone through the Flipkart or any of the interviews where you are given a problem statement. That problem statement seems to be like, given an input, give me output. No, that's not the case, right? It's like, are you thinking about these parameters or not in a interview, which is very, very important. With this, I wanted to bring a very, very important point. Most of the senior folks can relate it. I can bet on that. Your career growth actually starts from the top bottom, bottom to top sort of. So what it meant by, when you are early stage in your career, you start with the implementation. Most of the people are looking for, are you able to implement? Given this problem statement, if I'm guiding you, get this thing done. If these are the resources, here you have to write, you have to use this utility in order to get your job done. Are you able to do that or not? Right? That is the early stage. If you keep on growing in your career, you will see you are involved into like your problem discussions around the technology, the business use cases, prioritizing certain things from the tech, understanding the business requirement, connecting with the client in order to understand your users better, right? How they are using, where you using, what sort of challenges they are facing. As you start involving from bottom to top, you are actually growing in your career as well. It's not just the learning, it's your career growth you will see. And now, earlier there was expectation where people used to ask the system design for the front end for at least like 3 year or 4 year experienced person. Now I can see company have started asking this question to even 1 year experienced people, in order to see how much understanding he has as an overall picture, so that will he be able to contribute to a very small module, or he's going to make an impact while joining the company, right? That's what the expectation is when we talk about the system design. Now, we can't definitely cover all of them in a very short span. What I'm going to focus more on the requirement part, right? How to basically understand, how to basically analyze both the side of thing, which is functional and non-functional requirement. We'll be talking about the building block of front-end system design, which is functional and non-functional requirement. When we talk about the functional requirement, as we said, what matters is first thing, which is understanding your customers, understanding the business need. If you are able to understand it well, trust me, it is going to get deeper, 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 right? It is going to help you a lot. First, understanding your business and customer need, right? So say suppose you are asked to build something like Flipkart. So what is your, like, if you go into any interview, or say suppose you are having some discussion, even you are going to start your own something, right? Anything, what is the first thing is like business need and who is your customer. If you have to build a like Flipkart, there are two part of that. One is the supply and second is the demand. When I say either you are going B2B or it is B2C, from where you will get the good and whom you are going to sell this good, right? You have to understand that. Now if you're in an interview, it's obvious you ask explicitly which side you wanted to dive into the interview, what is the expectation from the interview side, which is very, very important, right? Second, talk about the high level modules, right? In an application there are so many things. There is login, sign up, authentication flow. There are flows related to, you can say, payment gateway. There are catalog related stuff. There are your apart from the catalog, you have your payment gateway, you have your wish list. So many things are there, right? So talk about the high level stuff and then start getting deeper into that. When we say getting deeper into that, when you're talking about catalog, in catalog there are so many things. What are those so many things? You can have an infinite scroll, that we will be going into the technical, right? You can have an infinite scroll, you can have a button in terms of the pagination, you can have a search, you can have multiple filters, you can have some sorting capability. Now you are getting into the deeper into what sort of feature and functionality you need in a particular module, right? This is how the things keep on growing, so that you understand it very well, very, very well, how it is going to work, right? Okay, compatibility, like that will drive revenues and impact, right? You have to understand what are the things which is going to make more impact. So consider example, if you introduce like coupons and like coupons and discounts related stuff, definitely it is going to drive more revenue, right? So thinking in those terms, those features, those modules which are going to impact more, if you are highlighting, then you showcase, you have broader picture, you understand your customer base very, very well, right? Tech is something I definitely trust. Like everyone can chase that, right? Everyone is behind the tech. Tech is the last part, the implementation, which, like, as an engineer, as a you can say techie, it's like you can work for 24 hours in order to get it done. But there is a very important thing that we will be discussing in order to implementation and the planning sort of thing. Okay, non-functional thing is very, very important. So guys, have an eye on this. This is going to make an impact. Most of the people may have heard a lot of things, but again, this is going to create a value. First, understand either you are going to make it for the mobile or the desktop, where your consumers are going to consume it, right? Either it is a responsive or adaptive. Either you want all the screen resolution to support this, or you want certain screen resolution to support it. What is the expectation and where your user are going to use it, right? Internet speed, location, and devices, where your users will be, and what internet speed bandwidth they will be getting. Either you are in tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, in order to understand your customer base very well, right? If you are having a low latency API and you are having a very, you can say, non-performant application, it is not going to work. It is not going to scale at all, right? So try to understand your user very, very well. Then accessibility is very important. Do you want to build something which is accessible to everyone? Do you have some user bases where people are having some you can say challenges, either with the color, you can say contrast, or anything? There are so many things in terms of the disability, right? So try to understand, do you have certain user base or not? If you have to think in terms of the accessibility, because else you will lose those you can say chunk of the user, which is going to impact and which can give you a business, or it can create an impact for you, right? Asset optimization. When we say asset optimization, how you are going to optimize your images, CSS, JavaScript. There are so many techniques in order to optimize that. People have already talked about so many things. I'm not going to get into the detail, but yes, this is something which you have to think if you have to make your application, if you have to make your user experience very, very better, right? Obviously the performance is basically going to impact when you talk about this. When we talk about performance, the monitoring of the performance is very important. Like how fast a particular application or particular feature or particular app you can action is happening on the user end, right? So those latencies, those experience have to be tracked if you wanted to grow, if you wanted to build something which is more user friendly, right? Client side rendering, server side rendering, if you can relate the difference, if you can basically think of where you need the server side rendering, where you don't need a server side rendering in order to achieve what you wanted to do, try to have that differentiation and get a better understanding of that. Authentication and authorization is very important. Most of the people think my APIs are secure, then my app is secure. No, even you can like if you are not having a proper authentication or authorization, most of the time you might have seen you are able to go to the particular application, particular route, and finally you are redirected to something. Like you were having access, but because of some API failed with 4xx, you were redirected to something else, right? That is not a good behavior in terms of your security perspective, right? So you have to think in those terms. Security, front end में security होती कहाँ है? But yes, if you talk about CSP, if you talk about XSS, right? So these things are something which can screw up anything that you might not have thought about, right? So people talking about the script injection, right? There are so many things. So people who think security is not like you can say cake for me, it's a myth. For a front end, you have to get into the security if you want your business not to suffer at a high scale, right? So this is going to help you a lot. Caching, if you have some data, you got some data a couple of second or minute back, why don't you consume it in order to reuse it, right? But again, when you talk about caching, the cache event and everything, you have to think about, you don't show the stale data, right? Challenges will be there, but are you thinking in those direction or not while building an application is very, very important. It's not like you have a good backend and you are bombarding your backend with n number of, you can say, requests, right? Because over there you talk about then HTTP1, HTTP2, and HTTP3 will come into the picture, where in HTTP 1.1 you have a limitation of like making maximum of 6 requests or 8 requests depending on the browser, and then you are stuck, right? You have to wait those for the resolution of those APIs and sort of thing. HTTP2 brought multiple good thing in terms of the multiplexing in order to help those things, but again, it comes with a compromise in terms of the performance if there is a line of ahead blocking sort of thing, right? There are so many interesting things happening over there, and obviously You have HTTP3, which is based on Quick, which is highly used by YouTube right now, or you can say Google servers, which is based on the UDP sort of thing, right? Not getting into the detail of that, just wanted to give a taste so that you have those visibility, basically the things which can actually benefit your application and the end user experience. Offline support. Do we have some features, something that we can store it offline so that even the user is not there? Say suppose you have a blog or article, right? Why don't we basically store it offline, cache it, so that even users are coming back even in the non-internet, without internet, and they are able to access it? That is something which is going to benefit a lot. Login and monitoring is very, very important in order to understand how your application is being used, what challenges your customers are facing. We have to log and monitor it very thoroughly. In terms of the product, in terms of the tech, both are very, very important. Are you even monitoring your perf, right? How much time this particular action or activity is generally taking, which may be a bottleneck for you, where people may be going away, like they are not consuming your application because of certain pieces, which is a bottleneck for your system. Unless we start monitoring, it is not going to give you a benefit over there, right? Are we thinking in terms of the A/B testing? A/B testing is why important. In early days, early startup, sometimes it doesn't matter. As it grows, right, it is very difficult for 4 5 p.m. or 4 5 business folks sitting together and deciding this is going to work for the entire world. No. Even Google, Facebook, Flipkart, GitHub, whatever you, Microsoft, right, they have a strong pipeline for the A/B testing, where they used to test different things to different users, so that they understand their user well, and they can eventually optimize and make the platform better in order to fit maximum use cases, right? That's why this A/B testing is very important, which is people also call it feature flag, right? So feature flag based thing, which is again the client side feature flag and the server driven feature flag, which we are not going to talk right now. Testing is very, very important, which gives you a confident, are you even basically making sure your application, the feature that you have built, is stable enough or not, right? That is not for the end, for individual developer also, that is very, very important. Internationalization and the localization. As you grow, even you see Flipkart, right now it is using multiple languages. It has the Bengali, it has Hindi, English, and lot more languages, right? So in order to reach out to more and more people, in order to reach out people with a different language and different touch and different local, right, it's very, very important if you are thinking in those direction, right? Obviously this will help you to understand from where your users are, in order to optimize the assets and everything that comes into the picture. Now versioning is again, as you grow fast, you break fast thing, right? But if you have proper versioning in your application in the front end as well, and you know what set of things you are serving to the end customers, that is going to create a definitely a big win, right? You balance it out, you don't basically break when your backend is basically changing. So if you have a proper versioning, you can control your application very, very well. So you might have seen Netflix and most of these applications, Microsoft, Flipkart, these are utilizing this versioning a lot, right? PWA, progress. Are you thinking in terms of the progressive web app, right? People are aware. See, like CI/CD. Are you making manual deployment, manual check, or sort of thing? Or are you trying to automate certain flows, right? This is basically going to help you. Okay. What we have talked about so many things, functional and the non-functional requirements, right? Now, what we don't do as an UI developer, which is very important. First, mostly we focus on the functional requirement, like product will come, business will come and say you have to develop this, and we blindly do that, right? What we don't do, non-functional requirement are still the dreams of many companies. People wanted to have something which is developed, like Flipkart, Microsoft, right, Facebook is doing. They are not able to do, not because they can't, it's mostly because we don't talk about it, right? We don't put those things as a priority in front of the business and the management, right, which is very, very important, and we don't prioritize it. It's more about balancing the thing. It's more about thinking for today, or thinking for a balance of today and the future. If you have a balance of that, then this is definitely going to be opted. It's more about you have to pitch it out, right? Basically thinking in terms of the front end system design, which is very, very important. We have just covered the couple of very thin layer about the requirement. Although I have started a YouTube channel altogether in order to cover front end system design, and I have recorded a lot of content over here. I will keep on like adding more content, so that it supports a huge community. I felt this was a very huge gap when I was trying for companies, multiple companies, and I was not getting those good content. And what I was getting entirely on the back end. but you go into the interviews, you are asked on the front end side, and mostly you might have heard things, but you don't know how to like collate those things and how to put those things, how to go into the multiple depth, right? So those are the things which I'm going to cover on those channel, and I will be sharing those. Like Kiran will help you to share what is the ending thing which I wanted to highlight. Better we design our systems, the lesser we will rebuild and we have to maintain it. This is very, very important. Most of the people just rush on building the things faster as soon as possible. But again, if you have a better understanding, you are investing time on your systems, it's going to be a killer for you in future, because you can go on progressively building a lot more things instead of investing on the same stuff. So Chuck the System Design, this is the series name that I started with. Okay, thanks everyone. If you wanted to connect me on any of the platform, it's again Engineer Chirag. Someone I think said about why I have written this on my t-shirt. As I said, this was a funny thing that happened a couple of like years back, and I'm just having this funny username.